Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. My wife left me and my daughter for a rich guy. 6 years later, karma hits, and she calls back because she is homeless and wants to come back. I'm a 32-year-old man living with my 6-year-old daughter Rosie. We've been on our own for the past 3 years since my wife, Cassie, left us. It's been challenging at times, but Rosie and I have managed to build a good life together. Rosie is the light of my life. She's a bright, curious kid who loves to read and draw. Every evening after work, we have our special daddy-daughter time where we read stories together or play board games. On weekends, we often go to the park or have picnics. I've worked hard to create a stable, loving home for her. I work from home as a software developer, which allows me to be there for Rosie before and after school. We have a good routine going. I drop her off at school in the mornings, work during the day, and then pick her up in the afternoons. We have dinner together every night, and I help her with homework. It's not always easy being a single parent, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Rosie and I have our little traditions that make our days special. Every Monday we have pancake night, where we make funny-shaped pancakes for dinner. On Fridays, we have a movie night with popcorn and blanket forts. These small things have helped us bond and create a sense of normalcy. After Cassie left, I've also made sure to surround Rosie with positive female role models. My sister comes over often to spend time with her, and Rosie has a great relationship with her teacher at school. I want her to have strong women in her life. Yesterday, while I was working, I got an unexpected phone call. It was Cassie. I was shocked to hear from her after all this time. She said she wanted to talk and asked if we could meet up. I was hesitant, but agreed to hear her out. Cassie told me she wants to come back home and be a family again. She said she's made a huge mistake in leaving us and deeply regrets it. When I asked why she suddenly wanted to return after 3 years of no contact, she admitted that she's currently homeless and living in a shelter. She said she has nowhere else to go and wants another chance with us. I was shocked and conflicted. On one hand, Cassie is Rosie's mother, and I know Rosie misses having a mom around sometimes. But on the other hand, Cassie abandoned us without a second thought and hasn't been in touch at all for 3 years. I don't know if I can trust her not to leave again. I told Cassie I needed time to think about it and process everything. She seemed desperate and pleaded with me to let her come home, but I stood firm on needing time. I said I'd get back to her in a few days after I've. Now I'm torn about what to do. Part of me feels like I should give Cassie another chance for Rosie's sake, but another part feels like Cassie only wants to come back because she has nowhere else to go, not because she genuinely wants to be with us. I'm worried about disrupting the stable life Rosie and I have built. I haven't told Rosie about any of this yet. I don't want to get her hopes up in case I decide not to let Cassie come back. Rosie occasionally asks about her mom, but she's adjusted well to our life together and seems happy overall. I know Cassie is in a desperate situation, but I also need to protect myself and Rosie emotionally. I'm not sure I can ever fully trust Cassie again after she abandoned us. At the same time, I feel guilty about potentially turning away Rosie's mother when she needs help. I've worked hard to build a good life for Rosie and myself. I got promoted at work, which allowed me to buy a small house in a nice neighborhood with good schools. We have a little garden where we grow vegetables together. Rosie has made friends in the neighborhood and is thriving at school. I'm worried that bringing Cassie back into our lives could disrupt all of this. But I also remember how devastated Rosie was when Cassie first left. She cried for her mom every night for weeks. It took months of therapy and lots of love and patience to help her adjust. Part of me wonders if having her mom back could heal some of those old wounds for Rosie. Then again, what if Cassie leaves again? I don't think Rosie could handle another abandonment, and I'm not sure I could either. The pain of Cassie leaving was almost unbearable the first time. I'm not sure I'm strong enough to go through that again. I've thought about setting some conditions if I do let Cassie come back. Maybe she could stay with us temporarily while she gets back on her feet, but not move in permanently right away. Or maybe she could start with supervised visits with Rosie before we consider anything more. But I'm not sure if that's fair to anyone involved. I've also considered offering Cassie financial help to get set up in her own place without moving back in with us, but I worry that might give her false hope about reconciling, or that she might take advantage of my generosity. This situation has brought up so many complicated emotions: anger at Cassie for abandoning us, pity for her current situation. So Reddit, should I give her another chance or protect the life Rosie and I have built? I could really use some outside perspectives on this situation. How do I balance doing what's best for Rosie with protecting ourselves emotionally? Is there a middle ground I'm not seeing? Any advice would be appreciated as I try to navigate this difficult decision. Update 1. Thank you all for your responses to my original post. I've spent the last couple of days thinking things over and trying to decide what to do about Cassie's request to come back. I still haven't made up my mind. This whole situation has brought up a lot of old memories and feelings that I thought I'd put behind me. I found myself reflecting on my history with Cassie and how we got to this point. Cassie and I met through an arranged marriage set up by our families. I was 25 and she was 23 at the time. Neither of us had dated much before, so we were both nervous but hopeful about building a life together. Our families were close friends and thought we'd be a good match. I remember feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety on our wedding day. Cassie looked beautiful in her white dress, and I felt proud to be standing next to her. Our families were beaming with joy as we said our vows. We both promised to love and support each other through good times and bad. The first year of our marriage was actually pretty good. We were getting to know each other, figuring out how to live together, and generally enjoying married life. We had some normal newlywed disagreements, but overall things were positive. We'd have long talks about our hopes and dreams for the future. We'd go on weekend trips to explore nearby cities. We even started talking about having kids. About a year after we got married, Rosie was born. We were thrilled to become parents, and those first few months with our new baby were some of the happiest of my life. I remember holding Rosie for the first time in the hospital, feeling overwhelmed with love. Cassie seemed to take to motherhood well, and I loved being a dad. But then things started to go downhill. When Rosie was about 6 months old, I unexpectedly lost my job. The company I worked for went through major layoffs, and my whole department was cut. I tried hard to find a new job, but the job market was tough at that time. I was unemployed for several months, and we started to struggle financially. Cassie was working as an administrative assistant, so we had some income. We had to dip into our savings and cut back on a lot of expenses. We couldn't afford date nights or trips anymore. We were constantly stressed about money. The financial stress started to take a toll on our relationship. Cassie became more and more bitter about the situation. She'd make cutting remarks about me not contributing financially. I was already feeling horrible about being unemployed, and her comments just made me feel worse. I was applying to jobs constantly and doing some freelance work when I could find it, but it wasn't enough in Cassie's eyes. I remember one particularly bad fight where Cassie screamed at me that I was a failure as a husband and father. She said she was tired of carrying the whole family on her shoulders. I tried to explain how hard I was trying to find work, but she wouldn't listen. She stormed out and didn't come home until late that night. What I didn't know at the time was that Cassie had started cheating on me with a wealthy businessman she met through her job. I was so focused on trying to find work and take care of Rosie that I was oblivious to the signs. Cassie would work late or go out with friends, and I never suspected anything. Looking back, there were red flags I should have noticed. Cassie started dressing up more for work and wearing more makeup. She was constantly texting and would hide her phone screen from me. She became very protective of her privacy, but I was too caught up in my own stress to see what was happening. This went on for about 2 years. I eventually found a new full-time job, but by then the damage to our marriage was done. Cassie had become cold and distant. We fought constantly about money and other issues. I tried to salvage things, but Cassie was already emotionally checked out. Eventually, she told me she wanted a divorce. She moved out and the divorce was finalized a few months later. It was a devastating blow. I felt like a failure and was heartbroken over the collapse of my marriage. Rosie was only 3 at the time, and it was tough to explain the situation to her in a way that made sense for her age. Cassie was hardly involved in Rosie's life after the divorce. She saw her on weekends at first, but then started canceling visits. Eventually, during the first year after the divorce, I focused on rebuilding my life and taking care of Rosie. I worked long hours at my new job and tried to stay positive for Rosie's sake. I also sought therapy to help me process the emotions from the divorce and work on being a better parent. I threw myself into being the best dad I could be. Gradually, things started to get better. I made friends in the community and built a support system. I also found ways to cope with the pain of the divorce and focus on the positives in my life. Now, with Cassie's recent call, I'm grappling with the old wounds and the current dilemma. I want to make the best decision for Rosie, but I'm struggling with the feelings of betrayal and the fear of repeating the past. I'm trying to weigh the potential benefits of having Cassie back in our lives against the risks of emotional upheaval. Thanks for listening, and I'll update again once I've made a decision. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.